Hey everybody, August 12th, 2025 here with your after hours recap. So today the semiconductors decided to wake on up. That was a pleasant surprise. Recently those names have just been a little bit on the more digesting side, or the group, some of them have been coming down, while others have just been continuing to work their way up. But today, I kind of tweeted about it. MPWR, very nice move out of this little consolidation. A-Lab with continuation higher. CRDO, kind of same deal. MU, same deal. AVGO. And if you just kind of work your way down the list, new all-time highs for a bunch of these, new 52-week highs for others. Nothing super impressive out of AMD besides a little bounce. And I do think that this name is potentially viable as soon as tomorrow. But, just semiconductors waking right back up, and banking names also waking right back up, which is obviously really good for the S&P 500. So really nice to see in that regard. I don't know, when these names will stop going higher. It's a beautiful bull market, and trying to get positioned as it is a bull market. It's been a little bit more on the difficult side, but I have been able to hold on to names, like ARC kind of continuing higher here yesterday. You had a ramp up and then it closed fairly weak, but then right back at it today as if nothing happened. So that is awesome to see. CCL was very, very strong for me today. Again, Hood, a little bit of digestion, nothing wrong with it. I did trim some off yesterday, effectively right around this level where it closed. So, really no harm, no foul. Oklo woke up as well for me today after earnings. I didn't think earnings were all that special, but they had some kind of a news with LTBR, some kind of a potential partnership. What was it? Potential for co-location of fuel fabrication facilities. So, that was cool for an LTBR. Obviously, nice move up, longer digestion, nice breakout today. Yesterday earnings couldn't take it down, and then today huge pickup in volume and a ramp up. And obviously Oklo and LTBR like that news, because if you looked at SMR, which was once, you're kind of a leader in the mid cap space. And I don't want to say the leader, but the one that was making new 52-week highs while Oklo was still playing a little bit of catch up. Now this one is, showing a bit of relative weakness underneath the 50. I don't know if, Oklo will catch up to that, or if SMR will play, a little bit of a bounce from here. But, I am an Oklo from $58, and I just plan on kind of holding it from here. And if we can digest a little bit longer, maybe give an inside day, I would be comfortable potentially adding. But, not some impressive earnings where, I kind of need to rush into the name or anything like that. Just happy to own what I already own. Tesla, really nice job. Basically bouncing right off the 5-day, effectively undercut yesterday's lows, and then just rallied decently from there. So, that is nice. And, for the most part, there aren't a ton of setups, but I do have some thoughts on what might be an idea in terms of like the rate cut. We all kind of know that rate cuts are coming in September, and the IWM is incredibly shorted. Huge, powerful day today, 3% up day, pickup in volume, almost like this flat little pivot here. Could it be buyable tomorrow? I would hope for a little bit of morning weakness, and then we kind of get picked up from there. But I would look to try and get myself involved in TNA going forward. Again, the Russell is the most shorted it's ever been in its history, which is kind of wild to say out loud. And then meanwhile, the QQQ is as crowded of a long as it's been in quite some time. So, while this was up 1.26%, it actually underperformed the IWM. So I do want to try to find my way into TNA for kind of a rate cut play, effectively, just trying to get myself positioned in the Russell. The other idea is, your long IWM, your short QQQ. I know that seems kind of insane, but even on a day like today, that's a positive trade. That trade makes money, even though you feel like you lost some money on the QQQ. you outperformed with the Russell, and I think that that's going to kind of continue to work until positioning can kind of right the ship. And you know, while the banking sector and the semiconductors are continuing to go up, I would suspect that you're going to have a hard time taking down your S&P 500. You know, your MAGS ETF continues to act really well. Unfortunately, I had my eyes on Meta. I thought this was a really nice, neat little bull flag after earnings. And no, I did not buy it. Unfortunately, that 377.44 level was a level that I was watching. And no, I did not buy it. First thing this morning, effectively a big mistake on my end, not buying this name. But I can kick myself all I want, or I can get a little bit better prepared. I had it on watch. I thought it looked like a nice setup. I just didn't pull the trigger on it. So, it just is what it is. There are still some names floating a little bit lower on their earnings, something like a HIMS, and that's perfectly fine. There are some names that are working their way higher after earnings, something like Meta. Some things are just kind of continuing sideways, like BWXT. So there's just a little bit of good, a little bit of bad. The MAGs are working really well. The semiconductors woke up nicely today. The banking names, again, a Goldman Sachs, a Citigroup, Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan, these things all woke up as well, which is exactly what you want to see. For the market in general. So that's awesome. A name like Unity, still, tons of volatility. You get this push on earnings, complete failure, and then today a big pickup. Kind of feels like this thing wants to go higher. And then on the other end of the spectrum, a Rocket Lab, where it's just, kind of wide and loose in here. And there's nothing really to do with it while that's going on. Even in ASTS, where you're like, okay, you get a gap up on earnings, hip hip hooray. And I've been saying for the last few weeks, don't buy it on the gap up in earnings. Just kind of wait and let day one happen. Let it build a continuation setup. And be patient, because this has been the majority of the action in the market. Despite what you might be seeing in a name like AVGO, or what you might be seeing in a CRDO or an A-Lab, or in a Citigroup, Morgan Stanley, the banking names, or even some of the quote-unquote FOMO that's going on with Ethereum, which is a lot of fun to see. You just still continue to see a lot of volatility around earnings, whether things are just gapping down, whether things are gapping up and stuffing, or whether they're just doing nothing after a gap up and they're just kind of continuing sideways. So nothing really is too appealing on the long side. I do like the way that BABA looks, for instance, but you've got earnings coming up, so you kind of just got to be patient for earnings. Nobody really knows what is going to happen there. And like I said, I just didn't see anything in the market that would make you just go, yeah, wow, that was crazy bad or crazy good. Semis just continue to kind of lead with the banks. And IWM outperformed, which to me doesn't seem all that crazy, considering how insanely crowded the Russell is in comparison to the NASDAQ, which is very longed. So COT data tells you that it's very longed. NAAIM, tells you that it's very longed. So, how much more does something like this trend have in the tank? I have no clue. I keep continuing to try and get myself positioned or stay positioned on the long side while slowly adding long exposure. I've been recently able to add Hood and Tesla, so that's been nice. And like I said, I still have ARC, CCL, Hood, Oklo, and Tesla. And that's kind of it in terms of what was going on around the market. Like I said, I didn't see anything super notable. So hopefully this video finds you guys well, and I will see you all for pre-market prep in the morning. Cheers.